You're listening to Tapestry, a podcast by a music lover for a music lover. I'm your host, Kelly. Join me as I learn about the common thread that weaves throughout our lives, music. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 26 of Tapestry. If you are new to the show, thanks for checking it out. And if you're a storied regular listener, I hope you enjoy another interview. Today I had an on-the-road chat with Nick Lee and John Carbone, guitarist and vocalist respectively of Long Island-based aggressive progressive band Moontooth. They're self-professed multiple-time World Sexiest Man nominees and legally are not werewolves, but they have a lot of stories to tell. We went into detail about the conceptual link between their two albums, Chromaparagon and Crux, and the changes that take place in the studio after an album gets written. Plus, stay tuned to find out which author John has paid homage to in a Moontooth song. The answer might surprise you. You're listening to a bit of Musketeers, a song off their latest album, Crux. Thank you guys for joining me tonight from your, I'm guessing it's your, I saw your little van whenever I saw you in Pittsburgh, so why don't you guys just give me a rundown of your individual music histories, and then we can sort of delve into the history of Moontooth.
Cool. So this is Nick. I got into music when I was really young. I think I was probably like 4 or 5 or something when I started to become very interested in it. And my immediate family doesn't play music, but their friends were like all in cover bands, and like my family friend uncles played in cover bands. So from when I was very young, I was going to their concerts. So I got very interested in guitar, and my parents bought me a guitar when I was 6, and I started taking lessons regularly when I was around 8. I was very interested, like as soon as I heard Metallica, I became very obsessed with them and just like hard rock and metal, and kind of digging through all of it throughout my life since then. And when I was 13, I met our drummer Ray in Moontooth in a Spanish class in 7th grade, and he was like the only other person I'd ever seen with a heavy metal T-shirt on. That was my age at that point in my life, and then he ended up playing drums. So like we started a band, pretty much immediately doing covers, and with a few of our other friends on Long Island. Then we, our serious band in high school became called Exemption. It was called, and we played together for like 7-8 years. We put out 2 albums and an EP, which are still on, actually on Apple Music and Spotify and all that stuff. When we broke up, I played in a bunch of other bands, but that band broke up in 2011. 2012, very beginning in 2012, and then we started Moontooth immediately. I'll let John talk about his early years before we go into Moontooth.
Okay, perfect.
So I started playing music a little bit later on. I was probably about like 15, I'd say, 14 or 15. Oh wait, no, actually, this is actually kind of funny. I always forget about this. So when I was younger, in like 8th or 9th grade, I sang in a band with my friends, and it was kind of like it was metalish, kind of like screamo. I was a big fan of The Used at the time, so it was stuff kind of like that. And we had one show at a local church that used to throw like punk and ska shows, and I was so stricken by stage fright that as soon as we were done, my guitar player was packing up his shit. I just went to him like on stage. I said the stage fright was too bad. So funny now doing what I do with Moontooth, but yeah. So then I didn't play music for a little while, A few years later, the same guys, more or less, that I played with, our other friend was too busy. So they said, John, we need a drummer, learn how to play drums. So I just kind of started playing drums by just putting my headphones on and kind of core my limbs. Never had lessons or anything, but just kind of winged it or wung it. That's not right. Yeah, so I did that for a while. Played in a band with some of my friends. We never really played shows or anything too seriously. I started writing music of my own where I just kind of recorded everything, like the guitar and the bass and the drums. And that's how I met, well, it's not how I met, but that's how I started working with this gentleman, Derek Smith, from back home. He had a music project called Right Cultivation Society. I'd met him once or twice before through an ex-girlfriend, and he's like, yeah, he heard my stuff, my solo stuff. He's like, yeah, we should jam, because he's a brilliant guitar player, and so I started playing drums with him, and that was my.
And I'm sorry, John. What's his name? Because you cut out right when you said
Derek
his name.
Smith. Yeah,
Derek
we
Smith,
actually just did a little weekend run where we played the whole album Crux, and he played keys and some guitar, because he put some keyboard on the album actually too. So yeah.
Oh, it's kind of like a little extra elevated mood.
Yeah. We've still, we've remained close with Derek all these years, but yeah. So I started playing drums with him in Rice, and I met Nick and Ray. We played. Rice played the Bitter End in New York City with Exemption, and that was my first time meeting them. And we had to play. It was at the time it was just me and Derek, just guitar and drums. We didn't even have a bass player. And I watched Ray do what he does and shit my pants, because I'm like, oh, I gotta follow that now, and I had to use his kit. So I was like, well, it's okay, so just go home now. Yeah, so that's how I met. And then I think it was that night that Nick said, like, oh yeah, I'm probably going to be playing, jamming with you guys. Nick joined Rice, and that was the first, and it was in that band that the first couple times I went on, which kind of changed everything. I already loved playing music, obviously, but as soon as I hit the road, I was just like, all right, that's it. This is what I'm doing with my life. I already kind of knew that's what I wanted, but that sealed the deal for sure.
I had no idea that you were a drummer, but that was one of my questions I was going to ask later on, and I can sort of wrap this in later, but obviously, now that I've seen you guys plenty of times, pretty much every show at some point you pick up a drum and you play it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, anybody can beat a drum relatively in time without training, but I thought, if he maybe did play drums.
Calling what I do with Moontooth playing the drums is a very generous term. Yeah.
Well, you also wear it on your head sometimes too, so.
That's born more out of just like a section in the song Crux. We close the set, and second half of the song there's no vocals, so I just wanted to find a creative way to stay involved instead of just walking off stage or still be in it. And it's it's just kind of like an accent and more just like what's the word I'm looking for, just a physical kind of thing, a lot more than being about adding any kind of rhythm, because I don't mic the kick drum up or anything else, just beat it up.
Well, it's definitely a visual accent too, and for people who haven't seen Moontooth, go out and see them, because their live energy is just unbelievable. But I remember the first time I saw you guys, I think it might have been I can't remember which song you played, but there was a point where you picked up the drum, and I was just like, what the hell? This is great. I just couldn't believe it was happening. But, John, I pulled a quote from another interview that you guys did, and I loved it. And I think the interviewer was asking, kind of something about why is putting on such a good live performance so important to you. But you had said at one point, in my opinion, if a band doesn't have a good live show, they ain't got shit.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I always go to preference everything I say with just everything is in art is subjective. You know what I mean? There's no right or wrong way to do anything, but of course, you develop your own opinions, and I've got mine. So the way I go about it is that if I see a band that can't hold up live, then it's, I don't know, that's just a recording project, which is fine if that's what they want to do. But that's really where it's at. One of the one of the best compliments we get is when people come to a show and say, you know, I've never seen you before. I listened to the album a lot, and then like the live show was much better. And like, I'm glad, you know, because it's, you know, we like doing it. Our live show is, it's, we stay pretty close to the album, but it is a different thing just because it's like a lot of times it's faster. Maybe there's like a part or two that's different, and it's very much translated for it to be a very energetic, like visceral experience.
Right. And I know I was really struck the first time I saw you guys. I mean, it's everybody. It's really all four members of your band, but John, you in particular, I almost feel like when you're singing and when you're up there doing your thing, you're like almost having a religious experience. It looks like it's just very, you're moving around, you're laying on the ground, grabbing your mic between your legs, throwing it around, doing all this stuff, and I love it, and it's so engaging. But is the performance aspect of Moontooth or any of your projects, like, is that linked with any kind of spirituality, or, you know, it feels like when I watch you sing, it's like watching a guy get his demons exorcised, but live.
Yeah, I mean, that's really an apt way to put it, you know, like it very much is that. And that's honestly like what I was talking about when I first saw Exemption, like, you know, what I loved so much about that band, aside from just the music, was watching them play live. And it was because, you know, pretty much everything you're saying, it's like you could see like these guys fucking believe it, and these guys were born to do this. And, you know, so when I get up there, you know, I don't know, there's part of me that feels more myself doing that than just walking around and, you know, having conversations with anybody. But yeah, it definitely is. It's catharsis. It's what's the word I'm looking for? You know, yeah. There's definitely some exercising of demons going on. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'll ask you about your lyrics and stuff later, but I wanted to also touch on what Nick does too, because, you know, John, you're very active on stage, doing your thing as the frontman, but Nick, you're kind of known for hopping around, standing on cabs and amps and jumping off stages and stuff. So like when you were really drawn to the Metallica and all the imagery heavy live bands of yore, did you like put yourself in their shoes and go, yeah, you know what, someday I'm gonna be that guy ripping a guitar solo in a giant arena?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely idolized them and like Pantera. Just the live show that they put on, it was very physical and energetic. I definitely looked at it more like when I was younger as like, it must be so cool to, you know, basically do what you want with your life, but like create art with your friends and get to perform it for people. It didn't necessarily have to be in an arena, you know, when I was younger, but a lot of, you know, that was, you know, I would have been happy with it on any level when I was that young. But you know, jumping on cabs and kind of just going nuts, that came more from just trying to like get people to pay attention and just try to stand out and just like get people occupied. I mean, from our old band, me and Ray's old band, Exemption, through Moontooth, like playing to jaded New York crowds and have them just kind of like folded arms, half pay attention. And, you know, maybe they're not into music, but I wanted it to be that, like, if we were playing on a hardcore show, that, like, we would put on a better show than those bands, so those kids wouldn't walk out because we weren't playing breakdowns or whatever. And if we were playing to, like, aloof hipsters in Brooklyn who, like, don't ever show that they enjoy anything, that they would have to react. That's kind of what you know, and we've almost toned it down over the years to a slight extent, just so that we could play our parts better than we were in the beginning.
Yeah.
But, you know, that we try to find the balance.
Wow. I was going to say, I can't imagine a Moontooth show that's crazier than what it already is typically, but so going back to I mentioned the arena rock thing. That was just what I happened to choose. But Nick, I know you also play guitars for Riot as well, and I was just looking that up today, and I'm not big into power metal, but I was really surprised to see that that's a band that's been around since, like 1985, I think, and now you're playing with them, and they're going on this European tour, and it seems like you have a fan base. kind of across the pond, and I just wondered, without straying too far from Moontooth, I was just curious about how that whole relationship started and how you got involved with them.
Yeah, Riot's first record ever actually was 1977, and they went through many lineup changes. But they started as more of like a hard rock kind of proto metal kind of thing, and then by the time like '88 rolled around, they had kind of morphed into like some of the earliest like technical power metal kind of stuff, like a la Judas Priest, Painkiller kind of stuff. And in '89, they added a second guitar player named Mike Flintz, who I started taking guitar lessons from when I was 8 years old till when I was about 18. And when the original guitar player, Mark Reale, who was the founder of the band and wrote most of the material, when he passed away, I think 2011, they kept it going. A couple years later, they decided to do a tour to see how the fans would receive it. That's why, it goes by Riot 5. It's like a Roman numeral 5 because they're on the fifth singer. So that was kind of
fifth incarnation of it.
Yeah, Mark Reale's father, who Mike, my guitar teacher, is still close to. That was his. He said that he wanted him to continue the music, but he wanted him to alter the name slightly to separate it. Out of respect for Mark. So that's why it's called that now. But it's in the States, it's not very well known. But in Germany and all over Europe, but Germany and Japan especially, they are still very popular there. On the level of power metal.
Right. How many tours have you gotten to do with them?
I lost count. I've been playing pretty much since the beginning of Moontooth, since 2014. Almost the beginning of Moontooth. I was touring with Riot. I've probably done 20-something tours with them at this point. They're never too long. Like, we just did a really long one supporting Primal Fear, and I was gone for a month in Europe. But other than that, they don't usually go over 2 weeks because those guys are older and have careers and families. So they're short. They're shorter for the most part. A lot of the times it'll just be like a couple. Like the one I'm doing in August after this tour, it's just like 2 festival appearances and just like a string of dates to connect them.
Does actually, I know a little bit about this from talking to Scott from your buddies in Cryptodira, actually, and I know that he was saying how like the European market is so different, the European concert going lifestyle is so different. Moontooth has never done a European tour, correct?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, I'll keep my fingers crossed, but do you have a preference, getting to do both? You've gotten to play to like little tiny small shows and bigger places here in the US, and then I'm imagining just you're playing to a totally different crowd, a totally different genre, essentially, in Europe.
Are you saying prefer shows over here or over there?
Yeah, do you have kind of a, I don't want to make you play favorites, but is there something that you really like about one or the other when it comes to playing in those two totally different spaces?
There's things I like about both. Moontooth is my baby, so I feel very personally invested in it. So I feel like not that I ever like don't care how a show goes, but I especially take every little aspect of the presentation of Moontooth very seriously. I like the fact in Riot it's work for me as a musician, but I kind of just get to play guitar. I don't have to really be concerned with all of the other ins and outs of being in a band and getting from show to show and all the other little details of it. It's kind of just like a fun experience for me. And obviously it's awesome to play in front of 30,000 people, but at the end of the day, I just, I want a reaction. I'd rather play to 100 people with Moontooth who are going insane than 5,000 with Riot who are just standing there. I want
right.
like an exchange of energy to happen. So whenever that happens, I'm most happy.
So you said Moontooth is your baby, obviously, and I know you guys are starting to go into how it started in 2012. The only person we haven't talked about yet, actually, is your bass player. How did you pick him up along the way?
He was just left on my doorstep in a basket No, he played in a band called Painted in Exile, and our Ray's partner Anthony Lopardo at the studio um, that he owns called Westfall Recording Company on Long Island. Who's also been my friend since we were 13. Anthony was playing drums in a bunch of different bands, and I think we met Vin through him in a band called Numera. And he just, he's just like he's a very likable person. So we're hanging out for years, and hit one funny story that always comes up in this conversation is that his first real show he ever went to was seeing Exemption, me and Ray's old band, open for the Misfits at a place called the Crazy Donkey. When me and Ray were like 15 or 16, so he was probably 14 or something. And
oh my god.
So yeah, so like when Moontooth started, kind of went for Vin just because we knew that we loved him, and just we're definitely looking for people like me and John were already playing in a band together for many years. I had already been friends with Vin for many years. Like, we thought it was important to have people that were just like personally compatible. Before music ability was even a part of the conversation, it was about like, who are we going to be able to do this with, for a long period of time and be stuck with in a box for 24 hours like we are right now.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, shout out to you guys for letting me conduct this interview while you're on the road, because I'm going to get this wrong. Aren't you driving from, isn't it like something crazy like Buffalo to, it's long. Where are you driving to?
Yeah, we went from Buffalo after the show last night. We've been driving straight through to Atlanta. And we're really incredibly busy. We just got a lot going on in here. There's a lot of shit to do in this van for like 20 hours. So yeah, let's make it snappy with it. No, just kidding. No, this is cool. I'm glad we could do this,
Yeah, no, thank you. I am so glad that I walked up to your merch table in Toronto after I had seen you guys plenty of times, but I have to say I was very flattered that Nick recognized me. He like pointed at me and was like, "Oh, it's you. What are you doing up here?" And by the way, I actually I wanted to tell you guys, my mom became a fan of you that night. Maybe I mentioned that to you, John, at the merch table, but my mom, shout outs to my mom, she came to that show with Animals as Leaders and the Contortionists because I didn't want her to be like stuck in the hotel room. So I just bought her a ticket and said, you can either sit in the hotel room and sulk, or you can come to this crazy metal show and get a taste of the stuff I listen to. And she was like, definitely out of all the people there, I definitely like Moontooth the best.
That's awesome.
I'll have to pass it along because you guys are very good to your fans, and as a fan, I obviously appreciate that. But so now I know you guys do some of the like live, you'll do your little van tour videos and stuff. Do you have an absolutely least favorite part of traveling and touring?
I think that, it's always hard to be away from loved ones. That's definitely the least favorite part. Things happen at home and you're not there, and either that's, you're just bummed that you missed something, or you're super stressed because it's something you should really be home for. That's easily my least favorite part. The hurry up and wait part of it gets old, but I can deal with that, where it's like, you spend 12 hours, waiting to get to the show, and then like waiting to load in, and then it's like, all right, you got 20 minutes to get on stage, sound check, all right, you got half an hour to play. All right, cool, see you again in 24 hours. The next, it's like, it's a lot of like up and down like that. But yeah, I don't really mind that so much as long as the shows are good. I don't know. Do you have a different answer?
Yeah. That's the biggest thing, is probably missing things at home. Good on you, Nick, because the first thing I was thinking about. Like, all right, what gross stuff in the van is my worst? But yeah, I like my family. Yeah. Yeah, that's the worst part. There's plenty of things. There's stuff I'm missing for this one that I'm really upset about missing, and but luckily our families are all incredibly supportive, and they kind of get it that this is just kind of what our lives are going to be. It just means we're going to have to go away for a while. But outside of that, yeah, I agree with everything Nick said with the hurry up and wait. Um, just yeah, the overnight the drives can be a bit much. Just not having like a comfortable place to sleep, or if you get like an hour and a half, just like uncomfortable van sleep, and then have to get up and drive. It's just like, yeah, it gets really frustrating. But at the same time, like, I think the brutality of this life is something that we're all attracted to a little bit. I think we're all you have to be fucking crazy to do this shit. I think it kind of gives us, God knows what we would do to like feed the crazy animal in us, and if we weren't doing this, but that's definitely part of it.
John, you probably are a complete expert at this point at doing laundry on the road, because I swear every time I see you guys play, you sweat through your shirt in like a song and a half.
Yeah.
Because you're just going nuts up there.
Yeah, when we pack, I have like the show shirts and then the day shirts, and then like the pants that you wear to perform, and then the pants you wear during the day. But yeah, it gets pretty disgusting. Yeah, we all get our clothes smelling pretty nasty. We actually have to do laundry. We haven't done laundry yet on this run. Starting to get a little thin, but we have a night off tonight, so I didn't think about that till just now. But yeah, I guess that's what we're doing tonight.
So hit them up in Atlanta at the laundromat.
Yeah.
Pay for their load, I guess. Now you guys really do. You were talking about your family just being important to you. You guys, as a band, you really do strike me as kind of a family, and just the dynamic is very brotherly. And being that you've been a band for 7 years now, but you've known everybody longer than that. Has there ever really been like a shift in the dynamic of the band over the years? I mean, your lineup hasn't changed, but how has everything evolved?
Well, it gets awkward when like it goes from one person gets voted people's sexiest man alive when it switches to another one. But the four of us keep getting elected so much that we've gotten used to it at this point. No.
Sweet band anyway.
Yeah, it's usually.
I think that it really had the dynamic because, like you said, like we were already friends beforehand. As far as like our personal relationships, it feels the same. But I think that we just, as the stakes got higher, we depended on each other more to be on the ball and to make everyone to make the same sacrifices. If I gotta miss this, then you gotta miss this too, and if I gotta do this, then you gotta help me with it. Just make sure we're all on the same page, and we have been for years now, which is good because it's it was like kind of like figuring out like, okay, like this is what the band needs to succeed, but like this is what we need from each other to also to be here and want to be here and not be like pissed off and like passive aggressive or resentful about stupid shit, like kind of just getting all of that out of the way like you should in any relationship. Like this is what I need from you and this is what you need from me. So it's more of like it's definitely a family. It's like that label for it, but it also is it feels almost like especially we're out without even a fifth person to help us. It feels like almost like militant in the loosest way possible. But everybody's got their jobs they got to do, and they got to do it, on time.
So, you said you don't have a fifth person, so you don't have any techs or whatever. You guys are pretty much doing everything on your own. I'm guessing, from like social media to booking, all that kind of thing, or do you have other people helping out with that?
We're starting to have other people. I mean, over the years, short answer is yes, we do most of it. But over the years, we've had people kind of come in and come out to help us book. And, like in a situation like this where we're supporting a bigger band, like we don't book those tours, obviously. Like we get asked to join those tours, like Animals as Leaders, or even back to 2016, doing like Intronaut and Thank You Scientist, Fit for an Autopsy. Like those are booked by booking agents. We just very recently started working with new management and very recently a new booking agent. But yeah, most of what you see beyond that is us, like from the social media to driving the van to selling the merch after the show. And we want some of those responsibilities to go to somebody else soon, but because of where we come from, we just I would imagine that we'll do more than other bands would want to do, just because we always have been DIY and we always take those responsibilities seriously, and honestly like being connected to the people that like our band, like that they're fans, and our friends that we made over the years from just being out there talking to people after every show, or being on our own social media talking to people. I think that's a big part of what we do.
It definitely is. I thought it was pretty funny when I saw you guys on Thursday. Those the two guys, Adam and Chris, that were talking to Ray. I guess their band had recorded at Ray's studio, and I seriously see them at pretty much every Pittsburgh show, and they see me at every Pittsburgh show. So like we kind of like locked eyes across the bar. I was like, "Hey, it's you guys!" And then I was really surprised that they already knew Ray and they had that connection. And I just thought, man, like the music world is really not that big. It's seriously some layer of one person knows another person who knows another person, and that just kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, for sure. Especially nowadays, like on Facebook, and connect everybody kind of like I think that we've connected. It's cool when we've connected people to each other, and then like they'll connect us to friends too. Like those guys are some of our only closer people in Pittsburgh, so like they have connected us when we play there to people who maybe become our friends or like more closer over the years, or help us with shows down the road. And that kind of networking is always it's good when it works out.
Right. So I guess I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit to some of the more conceptual stuff, because I did want to focus on your latest album, Crux. But going back to something John said about like, okay, he's singing to kind of let the animal out, and like you guys have that sort of brutal, passionate, fiery energy. The thing I've always loved about Moontooth music in general, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, are you writing all the lyrics or most of the lyrics?
Yeah, it usually, I mean, in the beginning, it was stuff that would have been, like the first EP was basically probably would have been the next like Exemption stuff. And so that was Nick. And then on Chromaparagon, it was mostly split down the middle, where like if Nick was singing something, he wrote it, and vice versa. But there was a handful of things on Chroma that I ended up singing Nick's lyrics. But Crux is all me, and then Nick, when he sings, are his lyrics for the most part, right?
Yeah, I think I just have my part at the end of the song Crux, and some of the lyrics in Thumbspike, but everything else was John.
Okay. Well, I've always appreciated the fact that there's just a lot of imagery in the lyrics. It's very naturalistic. Like there's a lot of recurring themes of, fire and bones and the sky and death and life and all these journeys and stuff. And I wasn't sure if you're inspired by literature or film or some other outside source, because I think you'd probably have to be in some sort of headspace to come up with poetry like that. It's just not really the typical lyric writing you hear in a lot of metal bands. Like, maybe not on the surface. I feel like a lot of your songs don't talk about the really popular stuff like love and blah 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 blah. It just feels a lot more philosophical to me. So I wasn't sure where you draw most of your inspiration from for that.
Yeah, definitely. Reading has been a big part of my life since I was like in middle school and a little bit younger. So it's the lyrics are an incredibly important part of the process for me, where I very much feel, whereas the guitar player's tool is his guitar, and drums are drummers are the drums, etc. Like, yeah, my voice is my tool, but I equally see like the pen and the page as like my instruments, and it's a very sacred thing to me. But yeah, definitely. If I didn't, read as much as I did growing up, and still, my lyrics would be a lot different for sure. So much to the point where I've actually put snippets. C.S. Lewis, like the Narnia books, were really what got me started reading when I was young.
Oh, me too. Actually.
Yeah. So he's probably one of my favorite authors, and on the last album, I took a portion of his writing and put it in there because it kind of applied to the song. I've only had a couple people bring it up to me and like catch it, which is really always very exciting. I shouldn't even say that now because when we get big and rich and famous, they're gonna come.
Spoiler.
Yeah, his people are gonna come trying to collect. But yeah, and even there's a I'm going off on a tangent here, but the first and last line, if we're not counting the epilogue of Crux, the first and last line of the album that I sing, because Nick sings some at the end, is the words "This can't go on," and it's actually from a C.S. Lewis book called Paralandra. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's a very quick part, but it has to do with what was going on at the time. But yeah, so I might want to keep doing that in very subtle ways of just like finding something C.S. Lewis wrote and put it in there, even if it is a very simple sentence that you never guess.
Yeah, but that could be kind of your like recurring trope,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
I've always appreciated that. I'm very drawn to lyrics that are poetic, but not in like a, not in a flowery way. It's just, I think you're very good at showing, not telling. And when you combine that with the franticness and the energy of the music, it just really kind of swells into this beautiful thing. But yeah, I figured you had to have some inspiration for that. Now, you did mention at the show I saw you guys at on Thursday, at one point, I forget after which song it was, but you mentioned to the audience that Crux, your latest album, it's an album about hope and, not feeling alone when you're going through a period in your life that's just like completely insurmountable. And for me, the album before that, Chromaparagon, was just maybe not conceptually exactly the same, but I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of the difference in concept between your last release and the new one, and then what experiences in your lives sort of led to the creation of an album like that.
Well, I mean, you can definitely follow thematically. You can follow the two albums. Crux is very much the next step from Chromaparagon, and in Chromaparagon, there's a lot more of like a youthful energy to it, and more like joyful optimism, whereas Crux is like is all scarred up and has actually started the adventure instead of just talked about going on the adventure. It's actually we've been doing it, and we've lost and had to sacrifice a lot more along the way. So it's not as joyful and youthful and bright-eyed, and it's more determined. And the hardships and the sacrifices have emboldened the I guess like the manifesto that Chromaparagon was, in the sense that before it's like, yeah, we're going to do this because this is our calling, and yeah, it feels great. And it's like now it's like, yeah, we're going to do this because this is our calling, and we've lost too goddamn much, and we've been through too much bullshit to not like, now we're definitely fucking doing it, So it's when I tell the crowd this stuff, like the themes on Crux, like, you might sometimes you can pick up on the themes of hope, but it's more so there's a lot of downers on it. You know what I mean? Even some of the ones that are sounding up tempo or faster. But yeah, that's kind of why we made the last track. I wanted to call it the epilogue because it was very much like the Crux ends, the song ends kind of like on a downer, and I just didn't really want to leave the listener on that note. So Raise the Light is that last thing. It's like it's very the metaphors in Raise the Light are like very not hidden at all. It's very it's just like, all right, yeah, it's like, okay, storm, calm down for a second. I'm just gonna take a second and say, you know what? After 45 minutes of bitching about this and that, I'm just gonna say I'm still here and I'm not giving up, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a very kind of uplifting, positive way to end an album that can be very bleak. But what I like about that epilogue is it almost feels like you're setting up a sequel. Like you're going to be leading into the next thing, and almost putting myself in more of a reader's shoes than a listener's shoes. It's like, ooh, I want to know what this character does next. Like, to me, it's kind of metaphorically framing, like all of Crux is framing the journey of, I kind of read it as one person. Is that true? Is that like one person kind of standing in for your band's actual real life experiences?
Yeah, well, the thing, interesting thing is, like, we'll use the term theme or concept, but it's not. At no point has it ever really been like the idea to like have a fictional. Actually, there's some stuff on Chromaparagon that would just kind of like fictional stories in the like storyteller kind of aspect. Of like, all right, let's write a song about this and these characters. But on this one, there's no kind of fictional character per se. It's much so just, I guess using my pen as the focal point of what we're all kind of dealing with in different ways. There's a lot more specific hardships that relate to me on this one lyrically, but they're delivered in a way that can really be explained by any of the other guys. So it's yeah, and it is very much about all the four of us going through it together.
I ran into Ray outside the venue, well, inside the venue, but outside the stage. And I know he was saying that, after you guys wrote Crux and you're starting to track and record and everything, he said that there were a lot of post-writing changes. And forgive me because I'm not in a band, I'm not professionally recording or anything, so this may happen all the time, but I was just surprised to hear that. And he said, that there were a lot of things that got altered or whatever, and I was just curious how the songs typically change. Like, once you have them all down on paper and you're ready to go record, what's pretty standard, and do you ever, like, miss anything that you came up with originally?
Well, this time we worked with Machine and Mark Morton on the pre-production, so that obviously changed we allowed them to come in and like inform what we were doing, but when we actually go to record them, sometimes, like, I don't know, for me as a guitar player, sometimes what I hear in my head is not what actually will be coming out of the speakers when I go to record it. Like, especially like when it might come down to a guitar solo, that, like, to make it something simple, like, this sounded good in my head and on paper, but like when I actually am playing it, like, it sounds too busy, or it sounds too, like, it just sounds like I'm trying too hard. And then it's like, that's when it'll be like, okay, I need to go back to the drawing board on this and this, and then I'll come up with something better. And then we push that to extremes where, like, I always think of like Vesuvius on Chromaparagon. There was no clean in that, like, in the whole first part. It opens very heavy and then it gets clean for the verses. And when we tracked the drums, there was no clean. It's like it was always just really brutal the whole time, and we just, like, weren't happy with it. And we, like, I don't remember, maybe Ray had the idea of, like, let's try a clean guitar instead, and it changed the whole song and made it into a better song. So since it's always just been besides the pre-production, which was just actually the working on the material itself for this record, like, when we're in the studio, it's always just the four of us. So when it's very free to change things. And even with John's track and vocals, like, if me or Ray or Vin has, why don't you try the end of that line like this, like, he will do it, and then maybe he won't like it, but then we'll find somewhere in the middle where we're all happy. And that's, like, where all the magic really happens, when you get the take that, like, you didn't even know could exist, because you were, like, still willing to tweak it just that much more.
Yeah, I guess allowing yourself to be open-minded to change, even in kind of the 11th hour.
Exactly, yeah, because at the end of the day, I think that what we learned, especially from working with Mark and Machine on this one, is just to be very, like, unafraid of criticism from anyone, and be willing to try things, because it's hard to not feel, like, attacked when you're, like, you have something that you worked very hard on, and someone's saying, like, it could be better, but, like, it's important, I think, especially at this stage, as we're trying to do this, for our future, for our careers, for the rest of our lives, that we can take that and use it, whether you agree with it or not. Be like, all right, well, let me see if I can make this better, whether I take your idea or not. And that kind of healthy competition, while being creative, is super important to us now.
Is that something that you pass down to your students, Nick? Because I know you are a guitar teacher.
Yeah, in some ways. I mean, I wish I had, I have a lot of very, very beginner students right now. I love when I have some on Skype that are like older and that are or just some my private students that are in bands, and I love when they will bring me just parts of a song and ask me like, well, what else would you do with this, or how would you write a solo? Like, I love getting to that level of being creative. But and I pass a lot of lessons I've learned from playing in Moontooth onto my students. A big one is just that you could take through life, or like being in the studio is, well, first of all, like working with other people and listening to other people, but also just like playing through your mistakes and not letting your mistakes, not going, oh man, I messed up, let me start over every single time, but like, play through them, keep going, and nobody will notice. And
yeah.
As far as being in the studio and working with people, yeah, I have conversations about it, but only with my students who are at that level where they're like, hey, I'm in a band and it's hard. Like, how do you do this? Like, how do you get I realize also, like, I learn from them just as much as they learn from me. And I think a thing I've learned a lot this year, not just from my students, but from just people I talk to all the time, is that Moontooth's very lucky in the fact that we do get along and can work together without pissing each other off,
Right.
whether in the van or in the studio. Like, we can, like, we piss each other off, but like, just not like, like, we can still make it work, and we want to do it together. It's not like, one guy's like feeling jaded because they don't get to write as much, or whatever. We don't have that.
Yeah, you guys seem pretty drama-free, which, knowing the way the music industry can be, where people rage quit out of bands all the time, the fact that you've been going strong and, no lineup changes, none of that. That's always a good sign.
Yeah, well, this shit's not easy, and if anybody in this group is making it harder than it has to be, then that person's got to go. Because I've been in bands where like people in the band do not get along, and it's just a horrible situation. Like, you're just like trapped in this kind of toxic environment, and whether it even involves you or not, it's like, who wants to be? It's like going to a job where you're like, all your employees do is just fight with each other every day. That's not the place you want to be.
Yeah, and like furthermore, this kind of goes back to what Nick was saying earlier. Like, this shit is too damn hard to not get along with the people. That's honestly, in my opinion, I think it's the most important part or the hardest part about being in the band is finding the right people to do it with. Because if you're gonna go for it, it's just gonna get harder and harder. Even if things start to happen, it's still gonna get harder in different ways. So you got to make sure that your team is strong and communicating, and everybody's serving the machine and not hindering it. Yeah. I forgot what I was gonna say, but that's the point. Yeah.
No, good answer, because that stuff happens every day. I have a couple quick hitter questions before I start to wind this down, but I had a few friends ask me, and I said, oh, please make sure you ask them. One, are you all actually werewolves? And two, what is your favorite tooth? Because of course I'm wondering where the name Moontooth came from.
Well, first of all, I will say that legally we're not werewolves, but off the record,
legally
we're absolutely werewolves, and we'll fuck any and everything up, because that's what a good werewolf does. Sorry, I've been in the van for fucking 18 hours. That's Nick, you're up.
I like werewolves. I'm really into it. I just rewatched Silver Bullet, the Stephen King. It was called Cycle of the Werewolf, his book, and they made a shitty Gary Busey movie, but it's great. It's awesome. I feel like more of like
you guys all have all that merch too, like the horror, the cheesy horror flick, like the limited edition T-shirts and stuff. I just remembered that too.
Yeah, I had some of the Tales from the Crypt comic books as a kid, and I always loved those. That's kind of.
We also like a lot of the wolf stuff. Well, there's the idea of the moon being in the title, but we had a song called Queen Wolf, and I think like the wolf has become our like unofficial banner kind of, and I guess a moon, but yeah, we're kind of about venom, and it makes sense when you think about it. Like, I thought just about this privately, like, the four of us work together in the same way that, wolves will, if they're gonna hunt. Like we're very much not like boners. It's four legs of a table. So the imagery kind of fits the band.
Yeah.
Okay, all makes
Plus
sense
we
now.
pee on everything too. So.
Yeah. And the name was like, it kind of just was the one that stuck when we had a big notebook full of names in the beginning. But I always liked it because to me it sounded like it could be like a Native American warrior name, Moontooth. But
Right.
and also just like the double O's in each word were kind of just like cool for logos, and the moon kind of just like gives off, outer spaciness, tooth, fang, carnivorous. Kind of just like
It
it kind of
works.
just like it described the music that I wanted to write. And
Yeah, for anybody listening who this is your first hearing of Moontooth, I would say everything Nick just said perfectly sums up the bite of what you guys play. Okay, so I have probably 2 or 3 more. What was your favorite show you've ever played?
Boy.
Or if there's one that's just really memorable, like life-changing sort of thing.
I mean, there's a few for different reasons. I mean, one funny reason is we played a show with our friends Husbandry in LA at the Viper Room, and you can look this up on Metal Injections and Metal Sucks. I forget which one it was on, but Dennis Rodman showed up and walked up to the stage with a stack of $100 bills and made it rain on us while we were playing, and then.
That is awesome.
And then after that, we gave him the microphone, and he led the entire venue in a Bob Marley sing along. So that one stands out for silly, like fun reasons, because like you can't make this shit up. But I'll say personally for me, the shows that mean a lot. Usually like the New York shows. We've been getting to on some bigger stages. We recently played Irving Plaza. That one stands out a lot for me, just because
Oh, wow.
the venues that we would go to as kids. Now that we're starting to play them, it just makes me think of being like 20 years old and starting to more seriously play music and thinking like I'm gonna be up there one day, and then you get up there and you're like, holy shit, I'm here. So that's definitely
Yeah.
a big thing for me.
yeah, and the Irving Plaza one was great, but honestly it was just like super stressful all day, just for various reasons. But I think I'll go with the last Long Island show we did, because we sold out our hometown venue, which meant a lot, and it felt like it's just like it was just like a good time. It was just like good vibes the whole night, and just felt like kind of the culmination of a lot of hard work. It was our headlining show, and we sold it out, and it was just a good time. I think that one feels like my favorite right now.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. I'm happy you guys are doing so well. So that being said, what are kind of the next steps for Moontooth? You just put out a fantastic new album, and I know you're going through the touring cycle and the release cycle for that. But what are plans for the future?
Yeah, I mean, since the album's still very new, we still have a lot of touring to do on it. I think that the big thing is to get us over to Europe, to start to lay some groundwork over there, and just kind of fight for better tours. I think we're finally, like I'd kind of mentioned before, we're starting to work with like new management and stuff. So I'm thinking that it's after all these years, it's finally time to be represented in a way that can like allow us to operate on like a bigger level. We're still going to do the van tours, and we're still going to be working our asses off, but hopefully just in a way that we can support ourselves, and with supporting bigger bands whenever possible. But yeah, I mean, just like go to Europe and then Japan and world domination, and
Nice.
better songs, and just keep going.
If you guys could open for any artist or band, who would you want it to be?
Whoever pays the motherfucking most is all about that cash, baby. No, I don't know. I mean, there's such a long list of bands. I'll say one that we're kind of close to getting to that point. I like to believe because we share some of the same friends and peers, I guess. But Coheed and Cambria is a band that like I was obsessed with in high school and was really formative for me. And now we're getting to a point like they've toured with Thank You Scientists, who are good friends of ours that we've toured with. So it's like there's a bridge there where I'm sure at some point it'll happen. So that would be really an awesome one to make happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the one that's always brought up, or always has been Mastodon, just because that would just make a lot of sense. I mean, that was a huge influence on us and me, especially as a guitar player. So I would be ecstatic for that opportunity. I mean, and I wouldn't say no to a Metallica tour. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, well, you're running out of time, I guess. But man, that would have been awesome if you guys could have hopped on that last Mastodon Coheed little run. I thought that was such a strange lineup, but then going to actually see it, it was just amazing.
Every Time I Die too, they're pretty awesome. That would be cool to play with them. Yeah, that would have been a dream lineup to be on for sure.
Oh man.
But yeah, there's a lot of bands.
I'll keep my fingers crossed. Yeah. I'll keep my fingers crossed. Well, to close out this interview then, I will ask my signature question, and that always is, if you guys each could only choose 3 albums to listen to for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Oh God.
I know.
Okay, this is all right. Without trying to think about it too much, because I could sit here all day trying to do that. One's got to be Lateralis by Tool, because that changed everything for me when I was in 8th grade when it came out. Really made me start paying attention to musicianship, and Tool's another band I'd love to open for as well too. So Tool, I think, just God, this is such a stressful question. I don't. Evil Empire, Rage Against the Machine, because I love the way it's engineered. I love that some of my favorite drums on an album. It just sounds the best, and the songs are so powerful. And can't all be loud, heavy music. So to balance it out, let me say any recording of Chopin's ballads. Yeah,
wow.
Those are my. Okay. I think those are my. I will go out on a limb and say that's my favorite classical piece.
Huh. Okay. Nick.
Well, I definitely, my go-to answer for this is there's a guitar player named Leo Kottke who has an album called 6 and 12 string acoustic guitars, and it's just him. It's like very bluegrass influenced, but it's like just instrumental, acoustic, just shredding, and it's just, I love listening to it. It just makes me happy when I listen to it. I feel like, like Master of Puppets would probably be the metal one, just because it's so ingrained in me from when I was a kid, and there's just such dense writing on there. I feel like it'd give me a lot to listen to and satisfy the heaviness. And I don't know, maybe just something like Abbey Road, just to balance it out. And I never get really tired of those songs, especially like the back half of the record is so satisfying to listen to.
Yeah, that's a lot of people go that route with that answer. They're like, yeah, I want to switch it up. I want to have a lot to last me that I'm not gonna get bored of. But
yeah, or it's just 3 Slayer records, whatever.
Or Slayer. Perfect. Safe travels, and I hope you have some fun in Atlanta.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
All right, I'll see you the next show.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly.
Bye.
Alrighty, that wraps up my interview with Moontooth. I hope you guys enjoyed. They're absolutely one of my favorite bands to go see live. So if they hit anywhere near where you're coming, please go see them. I know they're actually going to be doing an amazing show in October, I think in Long Island, with Husbandry, Johnny Booth, and Cryptodira, who I've had Scott from Cryptodira on my show too. So if you're in New York, go get out and see that show. You guys can find Moontooth's music on Spotify, Apple Music, all the regular places, but also go check them out on Facebook. They're Moontooth Band, and then on Instagram they are Moontooth Shreds, and you can also go to their website, moontooth.org. As always, thanks for listening.